Who's joining Dead City succeed adventure like Upkheimer Island Season 3? Rick, Daryl, or someone in Bronton? With If Dead City Season 3 is about to change everything we know about the Walking Dead universe. With rumors flying, cryptic interviews, and connections building across spin-offs, Season 3 could be the biggest game changer yet. Before we break down who might be returning and which new survivors or threats could appear, make sure to subscribe to our channel, Widmike, where we drop weekly deep dives, theories, and cinematic breakdowns from the world of The Walking Dead. Of course, Maggie and Negan are locked in for Season 3. Their dynamic continues to evolve, blending tension, trauma, and reluctant teamwork as they try to survive Manhattan's apocalyptic chaos. But here's where it gets juicy.
Theory number 1. Rick Grimes makes a cameo.
Let's talk about the theory that has every Walking Dead fan on edge. Rick Grimes returning in Dead City Season 3. It might sound too good to be true, but if you connect the dots from The Ones Who Live and the broader TWD universe, this theory holds more weight than ever before. We all witnessed the emotional and explosive finale of The Ones Who Live. Rick finally made it out of the serum's grip, reunited with Michonne, and began carving a new path back into the world he once knew. But the story didn't end there. The final moments hinted that Rick isn't just going to quietly settle down. He's aware of the threats that still loom, particularly those tied to the CRM. And he knows there are people out there, like Maggie and Daryl, still fighting their own battles. So what does this have to do with Dead City? Clues pointing toward New York and the CRM. While Dead City's first 2 seasons haven't explicitly mentioned the CRM, there are plenty of indirect signs. The man behind the Croat, known only as the Dama, is shown to be someone building something bigger than just a survivor colony. His empire isn't just about survival, it's about domination and control. Sounds familiar? That's because the CRM is known for this exact pattern. They infiltrate, they observe, and when they see a threat or an opportunity, they take over. The theory goes that the Dama might be tied to or influenced by the CRM, or perhaps even trying to break away from it. If that's the case, Rick could very well be the link that brings it all together. Maggie and Rick, a story unfinished. Let's not forget, Rick and Maggie have unfinished business. When Rick sacrificed himself back in Season 9 of The Walking Dead, Maggie never got closure. She never truly forgave Negan either. So imagine the tension, the heartbreak, and the sheer emotional weight if Maggie finally comes face to face with Rick again after all these years. But it's not just a reunion of old friends. It's a potential reckoning. If Rick returns and sees that Maggie is still traveling with Negan, the man who murdered Glenn, it would force Rick to confront a moral dilemma. Has Negan changed? Does he trust Maggie's judgment? Would Rick ever be able to accept the man who bashed his friend's head in as an ally? This isn't just about fan service. This is deep, character-driven drama that could elevate Dead City to a new level. Rick versus Negan, a possible showdown? Now imagine another scenario, one that fans both fear and crave. Rick versus Negan. Let's say Rick arrives in New York with CRM intelligence. Maybe he's tracking a scientist who escaped or following leads about military experiments in Manhattan. When he gets there, he stumbles into Maggie and Negan. Emotions flare, old wounds reopen. We could see a dramatic confrontation where Rick finally unleashes everything he's buried for years. Negan, in turn, defends his transformation, arguing that he saved Maggie, helped rebuild, and tried to earn his redemption. Would Rick believe him? Would he try to kill him? Or would Maggie be forced to choose between the 2 men who defined her past? Setting up a larger crossover universe. If AMC is truly planning a grand finale for the Walking Dead universe, a kind of Avengers-style crossover that brings Rick, Daryl, Maggie, Negan, and Michonne together, then Season 3 of Dead City might be the stepping stone toward that. Even a brief cameo from Rick at the end of Season 3 could hint to something huge on the horizon. He doesn't need to be a full-time character in this show. His presence alone, even in a post-credits scene or final episode, could send shockwaves through the fandom. We could see Rick watching Maggie and Negan from a distance. We could see a coded message arrive through a CRM channel. Or maybe, just maybe, Rick walks straight into Manhattan and whispers one chilling line. We don't have much time. They're coming. Final thoughts on Rick in Season 3. Is it confirmed? No. Is it possible? Absolutely. In fact, it's more than possible. It's plausible and maybe even necessary. Rick Grimes' re-entry into the Walking Dead universe through the Ones Who Live wasn't just a return, it was a reawakening of everything fans had been longing for. The leader, the symbol, the heart of the franchise. But his journey isn't finished. If anything, it's just beginning again. The writers know what Rick represents. His choices shaped the old world, his sacrifice preserved it, and now his return could redefine it. And what better place for that next chapter than Dead City? A show already filled with emotional baggage, gray morality, and unresolved pain. Connecting Rick to Dead City doesn't just make sense, it opens the door to a universe where all roads finally begin to intersect. You've got Maggie, whose last words to Rick were never spoken. You've got Negan, whose sins are still echoing through every moment. And then there's the CRM, lurking in the shadows, tied to both Rick's disappearance and the potential destruction of everything the survivors are trying to rebuild. Now ask yourself, what happens when Rick sees what Negan has become? What happens when Maggie has to look into Rick's eyes and explain why she didn't kill him when she had the chance? And what happens when Rick realizes the war he tried to end may never truly be over? This isn't just about nostalgia or cameos. It's about consequences and how one man's return could tip the scales for redemption, for revenge, or for one final battle. And if Rick doesn't appear this season, you can bet his shadow will be there. His name will be whispered. His legacy will hang over every decision. Because no matter how far you run, in The Walking Dead, Rick Grimes is never gone for long. So if you're as hyped as we are for this theory to come true, do us a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Here at Wid Mike, we're watching every interview, breaking down every clue, and following every hidden detail that might point to Rick's next step. Because when that moment comes, when Rick Grimes finally walks into Dead City, into the Lion's Den with Negan and Maggie, you're gonna wanna say, I saw this coming.
Imagine this, Rick Grimes and Negan on the same team. Now let's stretch the theory even further. Let's go beyond the possibility of Rick showing up and imagine the unthinkable. Rick Grimes and Negan fighting side by side. Just take a second to picture that. Two of the most iconic, complex, and battle-hardened men in the Walking Dead history, standing shoulder to shoulder in the ruins of New York City. On the surface, it sounds impossible, crazy even. But in this world, redemption changes everything. Negan isn't the man Rick left behind in that prison cell years ago. That Negan was broken, bitter, and caged. But the Negan we see in Dead City, he's scarred, he's evolved, he's still brutal. But now that brutality is aimed at protecting, not conquering. And here's the thing, Rick doesn't know any of that. Rick's last memory of Negan was the cell. To Rick, Negan is still the monster who bashed in Glenn's skull, the dictator who brought Alexandria to its knees, the war criminal who nearly shattered every community Rick worked so hard to build. When Rick flew off in that helicopter, Negan was rotting in a jail cell, still paying for his crimes. Rick missed it all. He didn't see Negan risk his life to save Judith in that blizzard. He didn't see Negan infiltrate Alpha's Whisperers, nearly dying to stop the war. He didn't see Negan helping Maggie find her kidnapped son in Manhattan. He never watched Negan step up as a protector, a father figure, a warrior on the right side. And when Rick returns and sees all of this, when he sees Negan standing beside Maggie, not as a threat, but as a teammate, he's going to be stunned. Carl's letter, the forgotten catalyst. Let's go deeper, because there's one moment Rick will remember when he sees Negan again. Carl's letter. Before Carl died, he wrote 2 letters, one to Rick, one to Negan. In them, Carl begged them to stop fighting, to build a future, to make peace. At the time, Rick couldn't see it. Neither could Negan. But Carl saw it, the bigger picture, the dream. And now, years later, that dream is happening. Negan is changing, Maggie is healing, communities are starting to rebuild. So just imagine Rick standing in front of Negan again. That silence, that tension, that history, and then realizing Carl was right. Can you imagine how emotional that moment would be? Rick wouldn't attack him, he wouldn't shout. He'd feel, he'd pause, and maybe, for the first time, he'd forgive. That's not just powerful television, that's legacy, that's full circle storytelling.